I know the Minister made a point about the presence of the term political party in the motion and took issue with it at a few junctures in the course of his interventions and in the course of his speech. I'd like to refer the Minister to a reply in 1983 by Mr. Lee Kuan Yew again, when asked by Mr. J.B. Jeyaretnam whether there were plans to increase the number of electoral constituencies to Parliament, and if such plans, whether a committee had been set up, and so on and so forth. The usual questions that we get in view of the current system. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew replied as follows: as there have been population shifts away from the old centers of populations into the new towns, my office will appoint an electoral boundaries delineation committee consisting of civil servants. Their report will be presented to this House. On previous occasions in 1967, 71, 76, and 1980, no political party served on the committee. Until there is a credible opposition party, this will continue to be the practice. So I raise this to understand from the Minister whether the Minister's comments today are a significant point of departure in terms of the prospect of political parties ever serving on such an electoral committee or electoral boundaries review committee. If it is, then we can have it on the record. The second issue, and a second clarification, I beg your pardon, which I think we ought to have on the record, is the question of gerrymandering. The Minister in his speech was very careful to phrase it in a particular way. The Minister said if the Electoral Boundaries Review Committee takes notice or takes note of the close electoral contest in the previous elections in its work, and it takes it into account, that would be gerrymandering. So can I ask the Minister a simple question? Is there gerrymandering in Singapore?
I think I've explained very clearly in my speech why we have kept the process as it is now, so that the civil servants who are not politically affiliated take charge of this process, rather than have political parties getting involved and ending up like in other countries where there's horse trading on how the boundaries are to be drawn. You ask me personally, I trust my civil servants to do their job objectively, professionally. You ask me personally, I think they have served us well. I cannot say what future governments may do. I don't even know who may form the future governments. And if a future government with a future Prime Minister think otherwise, then he explains to the House why they do so. We can quote selectively from our previous Prime Ministers, previous Members of Parliament, but we have always pride ourselves as a system that we are very practical people. We look at the issue at hand, see the needs of the country at this point in time, and ask ourselves, how do we evolve our system to keep pace with the needs of the time? We have never let the past shackle us in thinking of new ideas, coming up with new processes that fits the needs of our time. And I think that must be the spirit for us to keep progressing. Even in established democracies today, they have so-called rules that they so-called stick to across time. They soon find themselves in trouble because those rules are not adequate to meet the needs of the time. I do not need to name any countries. There are many examples across the world for us to take a look now. On the second point, I think I've explained the meaning of gerrymandering, what it means in other countries, and whether it applies or not applies in our context. And I'll leave it to members of the House and the public to decide.